Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slay, and today we're going to talk about the WWE Championship match, Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre, set for the Legends night on Monday Night Raw. So the show started with Drew McIntyre cutting a promo about being the chosen one and being appreciated and all that type of stuff. Of course they did a little nod to Luke Harper or Brody Lee with the it's Monday. You know what that means. I love that. I liked the little nods on the show a lot more than maybe a big package or something like that. It's kind of like it felt more genuine for each performer that was doing something decided to do it, how to integrate things that he did in their own way. I kind of enjoyed that. But so the number one contenders match was set up to be Sheamus versus Keith Lee. And Sheamus comes out, says that he kept his word, that he promised Drew McIntyre he wasn't going to attack Keith Lee during the match, and he didn't. He attacked Keith Lee after the match. Like, as soon as the bell rang and the match was over, that's when he kicked him in the face. Said they've been waiting on this for 15 years, to be on top together, to wrestle each other for the title, and it's finally going to happen. And they ribbed each other about how they're going to beat the hell out of one another, and it was going to be so much fun, and it was going to be so great. And Keith Lee says, well, Sheamus thinks he's pretty smart, but he had a real bad problem with Sheamus kicking him in the face, and he said he would tear him apart right now, but he's going to wait for the title match. He's going to wait for the number one contender match, and he's going to beat an apology out of him. And then it says that he doesn't trust Drew McIntyre anymore because Drew McIntyre vouched for Sheamus. He just cannot trust Drew anymore. So while then Keith Lee says something about, Sheamus just going to turn on Drew eventually anyway, which, of course, forced Sheamus to kick him in the face after he says, "Oi, I want to kick you in the face, man. Can you run your mouth?" And he kicked him in the face. So he got the match started right then and there because WWE what they did in the main event, I guess, was different. But he put the big match on first. I don't understand why WWE is just obsessed with putting the big match on first now, instead of, telling the story throughout the night and building to it. But whatever. So they did the match, Keith Lee versus Sheamus. It was pretty solid ass match too, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a big win for Keith Lee. So Keith Lee is going to get the title shot, and they had the stare down, and they're pretty prepared now for this match, which is going to be a barn burner. So Drew McIntyre later in the night said that he saw the spark in Keith Lee's eye, that he's ready for the main event, that he's ready to be the top guy, to get in this fight, to get in this battle. This is his big chance. And he says that on any other night, Keith Lee could beat anybody, but he can't beat Drew McIntyre. So I was like, okay, cool. And then they did I saw it on Twitter, a Raw network special where Professor Hulk or Professor Keith Lee cut a promo. Basically said that, the first time he wrestled Drew McIntyre was hard because Drew was his friend and Drew McIntyre had been through hell and he was hurt. So he didn't really want to feel like he was piling on. But this time, because Drew kind of led him astray with this Sheamus thing, it's going to be a little bit easier. That the title is more important than their friendship. And so both combatants are ready. Both combatants are ready, and there's a lot of players floating around in this thing. That's the one positive thing they've been doing, quite well when it comes to Raw. They really have had a lot of people floating around the title. Not all of these people have momentum. Not all of these people have credibility, but there is a lot of people floating around the title. To be quite honest, I don't know if does Keith Lee win the title? That's the first question. Does Keith Lee win the title? No, I don't believe he wins the title on a Legends Night Raw. I don't believe it. If we're being honest, I believe that The Miz is going to win the title. That's what I think. Okay, so I was going to make a separate video for this, but I decided not to. I'm just going to go ahead and do this right here. The Miz got the Money in the Bank briefcase back. So earlier in the night, The Miz very angrily wrestled Grand Metalik, but he was very shaken. The story that they were telling that The Miz obviously was off his game because he had lost his Money in the Bank, and he was very frustrated, and he didn't really know what to do, and he ended up getting beat by Grand Metalik, and he was very, frustrated, down on himself, defeated and angry. And he was sitting on the stairs with his buddy, John Morrison. And John Morrison basically like, hey, it's no biggie. John Cena lost to Kevin Federline. And The Miz was like, you don't understand. Like, I lost my money in the bank. And then, Adam Pearce, being the good guy he is, I guess, appears and says, okay, you guys were right. John Morrison cashed in the money in the bank, and he technically couldn't do that. So I have to give the briefcase back. And he does. And then Miz and Morrison start dancing on the stairs. And Morrison was humping the wall, and Miz was doing, it was just real bad. Like, it was, I don't think that they were trying to do like the Joker thing, but they just decided to just be as goofy as hell and look like two chimps on the playground. It was horrible stuff. It was horrible dancing, but it was meant to be, stupid because they're idiots. But now a lot of people got confused somehow. The same people who claim WWE is not smart and it's stupid, it's for kids, and people treat them like children, yet they completely miss this storyline. Where, again, I hate to toot my own horn, but toot. You seen it clear as day. I mean, the camera did not cut. When they made sure that the camera was on John Morrison when he handed over the briefcase at TLC, the camera was fucking in his face. You couldn't miss it. And now all of these geniuses, especially some of these podcast geniuses, are like, wait a minute, you can't do that. It's like, the guy who can't give the money in the bank gave it. Of course they have to give it back. That's common sense. And now all these people are flipping out. They just can't believe that The Miz got his briefcase back. And it's like, the point of that thing was to get heat, and they did it. I love this. Like, the way of them getting The Miz heat isn't by him doing mean things to people. It's about him pulling strings. Okay, him being a puppet master. Like, he pulled some strings to get Mandy Rose moved over to Raw and away from Otis. Then he pulled some strings to get Otis to put that Money in the Bank briefcase on the line. And then when he lost the Money in the Bank, he pulled some strings to get it back. Like, it's great shit. Like, he's completely inept. But it's almost like there's an invisible hand. I hate to use that because I know Don Callis is using it for the Kenny Omega storyline. But it's almost like there's an invisible hand behind the scenes putting Miz right in the right place at the right time. And, things are just happening for him at this moment in time. And I love that because, it's like genuine privilege. It's really happening on this screen. So why Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee are going to be the title match, and it's probably going to be a barn burner for sure. It's going to be dope. It's going to be badass. So there's no way around it. I do believe that Miz is going to walk away from the Legends Night Raw, the WWE champion, and going to at least carry it into the Royal Rumble. Now, that's going to cause some problems because people are going to be like, he just lost to Grand Metalik. It's like WWE doesn't care about wins and losses. They really don't. They don't give a shit. That's why people can't get so wrapped up in who wins and who loses all the time. I know sometimes I do too. But we'll talk about that in a different video. But you can't always, you have to look at the context. What is the larger story that is being told? They have been telling this story for the last couple of weeks that The Miz has been off his game without his Money in the Bank. And that this Money in the Bank represents something major for him. It is the opportunity to get respect. It is the opportunity to, for people to see him as he wants to be seen. 15 years in the business, you would dare say he was a legend, right? And that he maybe wants to be seen as a legend. And he wants to be seen as a star, as a top guy. Now, it would help if The Miz had some physical momentum, that he was actually beating people and maybe just losing his Money in the Bank was the only match he lost or something like that. And, that kind of stopped his run, and now he's going to have to pick it back up. But now we're in a situation where Miz steals the title, if that were to happen. And we just know he's just going to drop it back soon as Drew McIntyre get a title match anyway. Then we could just say that, we just know Miz is going to drop the title back. And then we could push back Sheamus and McIntyre to maybe WrestleMania. So what does that leave with Keith Lee? I think this is a good spot for Keith Lee, but I think he kind of has unfinished business with Sheamus. Like, I believe that maybe we'll have a Sheamus comes down to the ring and interferes, and maybe Sheamus is the reason Drew loses. And, you know, you can build that heat between the two of them, because the heat is already starting with Drew being, you know, looked at with a little bit of a suspicion by Keith Lee. And now you have Sheamus that's going to probably interfere in this title match. You know, I don't see that match ending clean. I don't, because what happens if Drew McIntyre just beats Keith Lee clean? That sucks for Keith Lee. Like, it really does. Because now what does he do? You know, but if Keith Lee beats Drew McIntyre clean, okay, now he has to give Drew McIntyre a rematch. You also have the Sheamus thing, because they're still going to be feuding. So that could leave some options. Maybe you give the title to Keith Lee, and then immediately Miz pops up, Money in the Bank, boom, and then you do Miz, Keith Lee, McIntyre, Sheamus at, you know, a fatal 4-way or something at the Royal Rumble. I mean, you could do that, you know, and that way, you know, Miz doesn't have to beat anybody one-on-one in order to retain the title or something like that, nor does he have to get beat to lose it. You know, you probably have to do something with him and Morrison. So there's a lot of options there. But I do believe that when Legends Night of Raw goes off the air, The Miz will be the WWE champion. And people will be angry, you know, because they're going to say, this is bullshit. How can you do that? It's like, if you're angry, for starters, that's the point, because The Miz is a heel. But, you know, if you were paying attention, you would understand that this is correct. You know, maybe you should spend more time paying attention to what actually goes on the screen, and not trying to be snarky and trying to be smarter than thou. Because, I mean, this was one of those times where they kind of snuck it past you, because The Miz did continue the match. You know, the bell rang, the triple threat was announced, The Miz continued the match. Even The Miz thought, you know, that it was going to count anyway. You know, he thought that it was going to count, but it didn't. It's similar to one of those, what I think it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, who tapped out to Kurt Angle, but his hands under the rope. Like, he was like grabbing the ring apron, and then he tapped out. And then later they said, oh, well, yeah, Steve Austin tapped out, but his hand was under the ropes. You know, like Triple H, yeah, Chris Jericho pinned him, but it was a fast count. You know, sure, these things happen all the time where they reverse decisions later on. You know, like, I think, didn't they technically reverse the decision of Royal Rumble 2000 and decide that Big Show won? But that was like way after the fact, because I think that was one of the, I could be quite honest, was it 2000? Or what? Or, yeah, it had to be 2000. Where The Rock won the Royal Rumble, but after they did some digging and they found out it was really Big Show won, which I think that's how they ended up with that damn fatal 4-way WrestleMania, because The Rock technically won the Royal Rumble that night, but they reversed the decision later. So they do stuff like this, and people really don't complain, because it's usually shown to you. Now, they did kind of drop the ball in not actually showing people that, you know, or, you know, Miz could have just shown it on the screen, like, this is what happened at TLC, and then you could clearly see John Morrison giving the briefcase away. So, you know, but it's pretty clear to me. And I'm looking forward to Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre. That'll be fun. But I definitely think The Miz is going to win the title, and you can bank on that. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys for all your time and all your support. Send me money if you want to. Thank you guys again, and I'll talk to you guys later.